to the Welcome to the Venture Creation Lab's presentation of the 7 challenges, and Dennis Rivers, who's here with us today from San Francisco, actually Marin County, California. And we're also joined by Abdullah Wal, who is joining us from here in Malaysia. Dennis, you're going to introduce us to challenge number 7.
Well, the 7 Challenges workbook is available free of charge as a PDF file at www.newconversations.net. We've talked about the earlier challenges in the series: listening more carefully, expressing yourself more completely, asking questions more open-endedly. Today, we're going to explore a little about challenge number 7, which is to turn every conversation into an opportunity to improve your communication skills. And here, we're building on an idea that was introduced by the anthropologist Gregory Bateson, and it's the idea that when we have a conversation, our conversation is like a chord in music, where the pianist is playing 3 or 4 or 5 notes. There's several things going on. So the first thing that's going on is we're talking about something. Like Abdul and I are having a discussion about next year's budget. That is the content of the conversation. But then the second conversation that's going on is, in my tone of voice, I'm telling my conversational partner how I feel about them, how much I like them or don't like them, how satisfied or dissatisfied I am with their participation in the conversation. So there's a content channel and there's an emotional channel. Well, today, Dan Kimball and I have been discussing the third channel, the third note in the chord. There's a learning channel. So this is an idea that I'm adding to Gregory Bateson's idea, and that is that every time we have a conversation, we're practicing our conversation skills. We're practicing the conversation skills that we've been using for a lifetime, and so we use them again and we reinforce them, or we try something new. So we can't actually escape this channel. It's always running there in the sense that every time we do things, we're continuing to refine our skills of how we have learned to do that activity. So that means that every conversation is an opportunity to become more aware of the conversation you're having and become more skillful at creating win-win solutions, which actually takes a bit of work. I mean, usually, all of us, myself included, we're very, very focused on the content, getting the work done, getting the budget planned, getting the airline tickets purchased. And so we're a little aware that we need to reassure the other person with us that they're okay and that we're okay. We're often not aware at all of the skills that we're using to conduct the conversation and how we might get better at it. So I'm wondering, how does that sound to your ears, Abdul? Or what parallels do you see from your own experience of coaching and entrepreneurial team building?
I guess it's more relevant when it comes to I guess it connects a lot with learning, especially. But I guess when it comes to training programs and coaching, it's a lot more one-sided usually. You know, it's not, unless the opportunity is given during a particular coaching session or training program. It's very one-sided, where the instructor is just talking and explaining and giving examples and just going through a conversation, which is very one-sided, until the opportunity is provided by the trainer to then say, okay, to get feedback back, or to then give permission almost for the person to start talking back.
So Abdul, let me see if I understand you correctly. So are you saying that I think I hear you saying that the trainings that you've observed so far are a little tilted toward the presenter presenting information, and they're not very tilted toward the participants practicing new skills. How well have I understood you?
Yeah, that's correct, because they are technical kind of subjects. It seems to be more one-sided, where we don't really expect much conversation either, unless a particular exercise or a particular case study is presented where it's expected for a conversation to take place. And secondly, also, it depends on the audience type as well, how comfortable they are, or how far you've gone into a particular session or coaching program before they're comfortable enough to start having a two-way conversation.
Well, that's very interesting. So what that suggests to me, Abdul, is that in offering a communication skills training program, we need to alert people that this is going to be very different from the usual kind of training sessions that they have been participating in. Now, Dan and I have been talking about how to introduce this in a way that would change people's expectations, so that they would feel more comfortable doing exercises and not feel that we had sort of surprised them, or like springing a test on a group of college students where they walk in the room and they have a pop quiz and suddenly everybody has to answer some questions, which is an extremely unpleasant experience. So how do you think, what ways occur to you that we could introduce this to get people ready to practice more?
I think there's a couple of things which I started to do, depending on group size and what groups there are. One is that in my sessions, I always start off with intros from everybody. So rather than just asking for their name, I usually try and connect it with what they want to achieve on that particular day and why they're attending in the first place, what company they're from, how they want to benefit from the day, what are the expectations from the day, etc. Just to get an idea, just to get them to be a bit more open about speaking and just introducing themselves. And the second thing which I've done is to make incentivize certain things. So, for example, not just rewarding by conversing back when they do have a dialogue, but for example, one of the things that I do in a larger session is when I ask a question, if somebody, if you say, for example, okay, so what do you think the percentage of Facebook users is like in Malaysia? Well, what's the percentage of user, the user base? And nobody will answer or nobody will respond at all. Everybody just stays silent. They come on, any guesses? You know, does anybody think it's higher than 50%, lower than 50%? And again, you get silence. So a way to break that silence, what I do is I usually give an incentive of a sweet. So if you get the answer, whoever gives an answer and they get the process, they'll get a sweet. And you hold the sweet up, and people have a little giggle because then they're a bit embarrassed that they're trying to win for a sweet. But then you do get a few giggles and some guesses going across. So someone will say, well, 20%.
So you turn it into a game. You turn it into a game where,
and then whoever gets the closest answer, I throw the sweet at them, and then they get to catch the sweet, and then I ask the next question. You know, so and I'll do that towards the beginning of the session. So it's done within the first hour. And that just gets them quite warmed up and comfortable in the sense that later on I'm going to ask a question or ask what do they think. They're a bit more comfortable and open to converse. But that obviously works with a longer session.
So in terms of our sessions, do you think we should give them a title like communication skills practice session or something, so that we alert people, we invite people with a kind of with an understanding that they're going to come into we could call it practicing new communication skills or something that said, wow, well, I'm going to come and I'm going to practice something. I'm wondering what kind of words we could use to change so that people walk into the room wearing a different set of glasses about what's going on.
I think that's a very important consideration, how to make people comfortable, how to bring some conversation into and some relaxed nature into it. And I think part of it is just expectation. Like you said, Dennis, what could we say even beforehand, before them coming into the room so that they know when they come prepared to engage in something that is going to be different. This might scare them away as well. You know, I think people, you know, learning is hard sometimes, and change is hard. If they want to really change and become better communicators, they have to break some old habits and be embarrassed by the ones that mistakes they make, and you know, finding those new places. But I think it's hard to find people who are willing to take on and, you know, jump into that, especially I think in Asian culture.
Mm.
So, so we have our challenges then to develop a new. This is kind of like a marketing understanding. It would be, I think, of analogies to sports, that you don't learn about basketball by just having somebody lecture you. So I think maybe we should have some sports analogies in our promotional material. That just as you get, now the thing is, I'm saying basketball or something, but I need to, we need to use analogies with the sports that Malaysians like best. So would it be soccer, or what's the favorite sport in Malaysia? It'd be soccer.
Yeah, I think it's soccer. Yeah, so it's football, but again, it will be amongst the males more than the females.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's an analogy that I use to break the ice as well. When I introduce myself and I tell people where I'm from, most people haven't heard of Birmingham. You know, even though it's the second largest city in the UK. But as soon as I say, oh, it's where Aston Villa's from, you know, or West Bromwich Albion, they say, oh, okay, yeah, we know that place. And all the males, but all the females will say, no, we still don't know where that is. So
Okay.
use those kind of analogies when with the males as well. I think another challenge we have is the way that the course is the course is structured, or the workbook is constructed with 7 challenges. One of the ideas that we had with the way it was structured was that people can attend any sessions in any order. You know, you don't have to come to the first one and go through.
Mm-hmm.
However, that makes introductions more difficult, because if you don't structure it where you only do the introductions at work, challenge number 1 and the intro, in the first module, doing it every single time somebody comes in or pops into a session midway will become quite challenging.
Well, it might be also that that taking the 7 challenges is the 7 challenges is the outline of like at least a quarter or a semester 3-unit college course. So we may be picking a chunk that's too large. So we could, for example, take one of the challenges. We could build a course around listening for success or something like that. You know, and somebody just I just bought a management book about leading with the right questions. So we could have just focus on one topic and do a really great job. Each of the 7 challenges could be a 20-week college course in itself. There are plenty of good books written about each one of those things. So I've just simplified them as simple as I could possibly make it to help people take the first step. You know, I call it the easy on-ramp. I'm trying to build the easy on-ramp to get people involved. Well, Dan, how comfortable, or what comes to mind when you hear that suggestion about perhaps focusing on one topic or another as a way of getting a more focused group?
Well, I do think that focusing on one subject is fine. I think what is more important about engaging the group is engaging them in the context that they're comfortable in dealing with. The examples, I feel, should be used that are the ones that best fit with the context that they want to get their improvement. So if it's team building, I mean, I think we'll be able to see that there are probably 2 different groups. So we're anticipating 2 different groups. One is the group of entrepreneurs that already have an established team they have worked together maybe on multiple projects in the past, so they know each other quite well. They maybe even know something about each other's communication skills, but they have to somehow, their intent is to practice better at the context in which they execute, and they want to have examples in that area. So if we were to provide, instead of generic examples of these things, but more specific examples within their context, maybe we ask them to fill in the blanks and create some of the context for us, because we're not going to be able to anticipate that often. But to have a way of engaging them specifically in their context.
Yes, I think of the 7 Challenges workbook as quite business friendly, and I use a fair number of business examples. But that's true. So the overarching understanding of what you're saying would be 7 practices for building a more successful team.
Yes, yes. And engaging, improving your results in whatever their mission is.
Yeah, I think there are lots better books written about sales. I wouldn't promote the 7 Challenges workbook, although I think it would make you a good salesperson. But I think there's much more focused material on sales.
I would agree.
But in terms of customer service, it's a great, I don't know whether I shared with you that the United States Social Security Administration is using the 7 Challenges workbook to train their customer service representatives.
Customer service department, that's interesting.
To train the people who answer the telephone, have to deal with those angry citizens out there with a problem to be solved. So I can hear them now. They're probably saying, I hear you're really upset, Mrs. Jones, that your check didn't arrive this month.
But Dennis, I had a bright idea. If you let's see if it's bright. Let me bounce it off you guys. We have quite a few call centers here in Malaysia. I'm proposing we think of approaching several call center HR groups and tell them that we would like to train some trainers. We would like to help them incorporate better training in call center, customer service.
Call center conversations.
Yes, call center conversations using the 7 Challenges methodology, which we have a master mentor that can come and help you train some people to do this better. And we would encourage translation to Malay or whatever languages that might be required or helpful to.
And the fact that it's in the Creative Commons means they can do the translations and there's no royalties. It's free of royalties. It's theirs to adapt as they see fit.
So Abdul, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that's a good idea. I think, like we were discussing yesterday, Dan, I think there's quite a lot of flexibility in what we can do with it. I mean, even the idea, with the TTT, for example, train the trainers and or just train the, just the heads of the call centers for them then to train call center staff, or whether it's the actual all the team in a call center. I think there's quite a lot of options.
Well, what I heard from Dennis the other day was that I think you're looking for environments where people are interested in developing their communication skills in order to teach it better, because that allows you to do what your mission is, which is really to spread the method.
Well, that's true, and the problem is that
excuse me, I have to just take this call.
Sure. So Abdul Awal, the thing that I'm struggling with is that the Google Hangouts is not a natural environment for this kind of intimate stuff. So if we get a bunch of trainers in the room who already have a BA or an MA, they're pretty comfortable at opening up and interacting. But if we get a row of customer service, if we get a row of 22-year-old women who are telephone answerers, they're going to have a hard time overcoming the kind of cultural barriers towards self-revelation and so on. And I don't think that I can do courses for beginners in this medium. I can be of help to people who are a little closer to where I am. And that's kind of a limitation. I wish that limitation were not there. I wish I were so charismatic a teacher that I could reach across all the cultural barriers. But as I watched the auditorium we had about 15 women in that auditorium, and they were very shy about expressing themselves in such a public environment. Now, I think you took a deep breath or something. You were about to say something. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I can see a solution to that, because I think when you're oh, Dan's back. Okay, Dan. Dennis was just mentioning about he sees it as a huge problem about the audience not, being very shy and very reserved and very introvert, where they're not even participating in any way. And Dennis feels that it's due to this distant way of teaching, so you can't get the right tone, the right kind of make the right kind of connection.
To teach total beginners.
Yeah, for the beginners especially. So, and what just came to my mind was a way to make things a bit better would be that we can. I mean, I don't think it's that you lack of charisma, during the sessions, but we could enhance it and maybe increase his power by having a course facilitator on this end, which means that rather than all of us being participants, we had somebody on this end who was a course facilitator as well, that when you say, okay, now this is what we're going to do next, the person kind of takes over on this and says, okay guys, everybody in the room, this is what we're doing. Can I have groups of 2, or you can get your pen and paper out. This is what Dennis means, and this is what he wants you to, and we bring up the slide or whatever that is relevant to that particular thing you want to go ahead with. So it means we have organization on our part in preparing for that session, so we know exactly what you're going to be doing in that 1 hour or that day. And then we can really facilitate it hands-on here, rather than just turn our chairs and say, okay, everybody, let's do the session.
I would do the lecture part, and the local people would do the exercise part.
That's right. Yeah. So you would initiate as well. So when you would say during the live session, okay, now we're gonna do the session. Now, are there any questions?
Yeah.
And you will still oversee it, virtually, but it would be done a lot more practically from our end.
And I could just say, now I'm going to turn the microphone over to Abdul Awal, and he's going to lead you in, exercise 3. Yeah.
Something like that. And then as I'm mentioning, you're watching over, and I could say, so this is what we're doing. Is that okay, Dennis? Is that what you meant? And you can say, yeah, this is what, and you could add a couple of words to it. And then I could, okay, let's everybody go ahead. And then I can, you have somebody walking around the room as well and answer questions. If there's a question somebody has, which a facilitator thinks you should answer, they'll say, okay, Dennis, for example, Ahmed here has a question which I think is quite useful to be answered for the whole group, and then we could ask it. So in that, make it more interactive, I think, as well.
Well, that fits in very well with the train the trainer model as well, because the trainers, or people who are being trained to do this, are the ones that are going to have to be the facilitators. So bringing up that methodology at the beginning, where they're going to engage in conducting the exercises, gives them a role, and then the participants also have their role.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, Dennis? Does that sound okay?
Oh, I think that would be a great innovation. And also, my impression, although I don't see it so clearly because I've been working on it for 20 years, but my impression is that the things that I describe in the 7 Challenges workbook are not difficult to understand. They're actually difficult to practice. And I'm wondering, because you're seeing the 7 Challenges workbook with fresh eyes, I'm wondering if you agree with that. It is, how easy is it for you as a trainer to see what I'm up to, the goals of the exercises?
I think that part of what you do is not a problem. I think I see it quite easily, because and I don't know if that's a good thing either, because the reason it's not a problem is because we dive right into it pretty quickly. I mean, within the first 2 or 3 minutes, you're into the flow of things, and we know exactly what that was going to be about. which can be a good thing, but also it means that the audience maybe hasn't been sufficiently warmed up. But you're doing that because of the limited
Yes.
time, because it's an hour. So as far as understanding what the content's going to be and what the expectations of the session is pretty clear.
Okay, so what you're bringing up, the point you're bringing up right now is something that the local trainers could do, because it's almost impossible for me as a 10-foot tall face on a screen in an auditorium to warm people up, but you being there could supervise an exercise where you say, turn to the person next to you and exchange. You each have a minute to say what you hope to get out of this session or something like that.
That's a good idea. And also what you just mentioned, I mean, if we're still doing the 1 hour sessions and you still need to really get into the depth of the topic within the first 5 minutes, we could start a bit earlier on our end, so half an hour earlier, for example, where Dan can get the session going and just warmed up, and the audience just so that when you're on, they've already been sufficiently kind of prepared, I guess.
So Dan, I'd be delighted if you would take a turn and say how closely are we fulfilling your hopes for this conference call today?
Well, I didn't know quite what to expect, but I'm pleased with the fact that we're focusing on the how do we improve this. I think what I'm striving for is developing an environment for engaged learning, and with that in mind, applying the technology, applying the 7 challenges as a vehicle for demonstrating this engaged learning. I think we're seeing first off what the requirements are, and that this is exactly what the Venture Creation Cafe recognizes, that the role of the people together is to be together, to engage in the way that they would as a fully embodied real human beings in a real room in a real setting, but facilitated in some way by with some guidance, with this mentorship from
yes. Well, so now, and we've also expanded that because now we're kind of heading toward more of a model where there's a teacher and there's a teaching assistant. So that means that I would have a team. I would have a team partner. That is, I would have either you or Abdul Awal or Shada or someone who was interested in being the local facilitator and encourager, who could do the warm-up exercises and who could supervise the the class exercises during the course of the class.
Yeah.
So there might be some candidates. There might be some interesting people interested in playing that role. I'd be delighted if Shada wanted to play it, but she's kind of busy. She might be quite busy.
Yeah, I don't know. She'll have to decide about that. I don't think I mentioned this to you, but my conversation after we spoke yesterday, I talked with Dr. Zaidi at UTM down in Johor. He wanted to be engaged in this conversation. In fact, I sent him an invitation, but he told me that he was out riding motorcycles, I guess, this morning. He saw an opportunity to do some training the trainers thing, and he was quite excited about it. I think of all the people that we've met with in the past, Zaidi seemed to be the most engaged in the process and interest in taking it further. And would like to develop as part of a module that they can convey. So I think it's not just Abdul Awal and myself that need to be concerned with this. There's other people, especially in the domain of this train the trainer thing, where we can get other people involved.
Yes. Well, so in each area, where we're going to present courses, I need a regional teaching assistant. or a regional trainer or local trainer or
Well, those people first need to be, they first need to know the material. They would need to
mhm.
practice the material with you, so that they can begin to interact with you in a way that they
Yes.
know then how to work with you.
Mhm.
So, is that going to be part of the first material? I'm thinking this is maybe a better way to approach this, Abdul, is that we try to focus on introducing the material not as come and learn and practice these skills, but come and learn these skills so that you can train others.
Okay, but that will be specifically for that segment, though, I guess.
Say that
Yes,
again?
it's very different if you're speaking to trainers and you're
Yeah,
saying expand your training capacities. You already have a very bright, disciplined group of people that you're
yeah,
talking to.
yeah. I guess that kind of approach would work for the training departments, head of maybe call centers, and even just general other trainers, because there are a lot of courses here that do communication-based training. So there's quite a lot of options like that. In fact, one of the things I proposed to Dan yesterday, was it yesterday, Dan? A couple of days ago, was that it might be a good idea, because there's so many of these courses taking place, for us to just attend one of those and see what are Malaysian communication courses like at the moment. What do they do?
Yeah. Dennis, can you maybe give us a sense of what you think goes on at these communication skills workshops inside of companies, and what it is that you might do that's different?
Well, I wish that all I need is a round trip ticket to Kuala Lumpur, and I will go to these courses on your behalf
Yeah. Okay.
and bring you back a report.
Okay. Good. Um, well, we'll try to find a way to arrange that. That sounds cool.
I think that a lot of communication skills courses, my what I have is almost like a universal curriculum. So it would not surprise me at all if, because I'm drawing from industry standard kind of textbooks, asking open-ended questions. There's several big books on that one. Giving more positive encouragement, expressing more appreciation, giving positive feedback. There's a whole, God, that's a whole science. So I think that my work kind of represents a simplified best practices across the communication teaching spectrum. But I would love to learn how people are doing it in other cultures, because other cultures have other rules. I'm especially aware that in some cultures it's rude to ask questions. So that means that even though asking questions is a terribly important thing to do, it has to be put. It's like the meat in the sandwich. It has to be put inside the bread of that particular culture, or the chapati of that culture, or that is, every culture is going to wrap that meat in something different so you can hang on to it. And I think that questions are the same, that every culture has its own way of buffering questions to make them more polite or more acceptable. And that's the thing that I don't know outside of my own area.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there are cultural differences for sure here. Um, Abdul, to kind of wrap things up here, I'm going to have to be leaving shortly. I'm trying to just summarize a little bit about what it is that we think that we're going to do different now. I'd like to turn this into kind of a game plan. I sent some new material to you, Abdul, yesterday, and I think that was directing it more toward giving examples in the context of those people we're training.
Yes.
I think there's an interest in doing it more like a train the trainers, or at least engaging people who have communication skills as their you know, maybe it's a group of Malaysians that we are trying to train in order to spread the 7 challenges messages in Malay, for example. Do you guys have any conclusions yet about how this changes the way we're going to proceed?
You raised a very interesting question in my mind. Who are our main competitors and how could we cooperate with them? For example, does the university have a department of communication studies? Or does it have at least a couple of faculty members who are interested in communication and who would be interested in partnering with us? Those would be really significant people, because Abdul, as I expressed to Dan, I feel like I'm just flying blind. And I feel really comfortable with Spanish-speaking people. I feel really comfortable with Portuguese-speaking people. But in relation to Asian cultures, I don't have enough experience with Asian people to have an intuitive sense of what's going on. So I feel somewhat at a disadvantage in teaching these courses, even though I think they're really powerful ideas. But I need a cultural partner. I'd love to have a professor of communication studies from the university be on board as a, you know, participant or an encourager or a consultant, giver of blessings. I think it would make a big difference too if we got somebody. They could become on the board of advisors of the, if the Venture Creation Cafe doesn't have a board of advisors, then I think you ought to create a board of advisors of that and fill it with important creative people who give you good advice and who act as a sounding board, and it would give you a lot more clout and people would be much more willing to pay attention if you have a letterhead and down the side of your letterhead you have our board of advisors, and you run your programs by them, show them what you're doing, get their feedback so that they're not blindsided by something that they didn't expect, but you actually, and they might give you hints about how to make them go better. Anyway, those are some brainstorm ideas that I have about what I think would make this go better, both for my program and for other programs. You might get a professor of management, you know, on your board of advisors who's really interested in this whole how to, and you know, encourage innovation and creation, especially in a culture that's kind of focused on kind of conciliation and people getting along really well together by not having arguments or not disagreeing too much.
Yeah, well, I really wish Zaidi could join us today because
he would be that person.
Yeah, he would be the one at least to give a. I'm sure. I'll try to.
Yes. So Dan, what you can see, what I'm hoping for is that we could institutionalize that. So rather than just having a person drawn in for an occasional conversation, that you have the Venture Creation Cafe, you have your mission statement, and then you say, we'd like you to be on our board of advisors because we want to do this in a way that really fits with Malaysian culture. And we know that Malays want to be more creative and entrepreneurial, and we want to participate in that process, but we don't know everything. And you have the missing pieces for us. So won't you join us and be part of our community? See, that's different than just calling somebody once and asking for good advice. So I hope you will take that idea into consideration about the bureaucratic structure of the Venture Creation Cafe.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Go ahead, Abdul.
I just want to send you this link I just found. So this is the British Council in Malaysia. Did you receive it? This link?
I did receive it.
Chat. One new message.
Yeah,
one
just
new
click on
message.
group chat on the top left.
Okay. Wow. Here it is. Yeah.
So that's just one place that is doing something. I have a friend, he's a trainer, Raveen. I think, Dan, you met him at one of the, I think one of my social media courses once when Patrick was there, and there was another trainer friend of mine called Raveen, Indian guy, tall one.
Oh yeah, I met. mentor.
He normally does soft skill training like creative thinking and problem solving and team building, and I'm sure he did have something on his resume to do with communications as well. So I think he'd be a good person to have a chat with as well.
Uh-huh.
I think the way to move forward from now, I think would be if Dan, maybe you could kind of think more about how the courses could become more effective when it comes to this distance thing and making it more personal. And I think I should still carry on proceeding with contacting some HR departments directly, through that we've already worked with Charles Mann, and see whether they'll be interested in this course. And let's try and get some in-house sessions or some training programs, provided like that. So with the documents that you sent yesterday, so I can create the brochures from that, and let's see what we can market.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good.
There's one more thing I wanted to discuss with the two of you, and I think it's a hadith. So I want you to correct me if in my understanding. My understanding is there's a Muslim tradition that says that if two of your friends are in a fight, that they can't be expected, being weak human beings, they can't be expected to extricate themselves from the fight. So that it's your duty as a good Muslim to try to separate them, to try to intervene, to resolve the conflict between them. Now I'm wondering, have I understood that correctly, or is that just, it might just be hopeful folklore?
I don't know. I can
maybe
check
you
that.
know the reference.
Yeah, I can check that. I know there's something about there is a narration about that is not permissible for two Muslims to not be speaking to each other, out of after an argument for more than 3 days. So you're
Wow.
forced to communicate.
Wow, that's beautiful. Well, anyway, I'd like to collect these because I think that I think we need to draw, every culture has its own wisdom about communication.
Yeah.
And I find great inspiration. I don't, although there's things in the Christian scriptures about, blessed are the peacemakers. When I heard this Muslim hadith, I thought, that is so beautiful. That's a gift to the whole world. Everybody should follow this. So I'd like us to, anyway, I want to acknowledge the two of you as my partners in carrying forward this work, that the world yearns to be a gentler place. And somehow it's going to take our effort to help the world grow in that direction. And my life has been so inspired by that vision that I learned from the Muslim tradition. So I want you to help me find other material, because I do feel that this communication stuff needs to be rooted in as much local. Every culture needs to understand it in its own way and draw from its own resources. Also, I'm kind of embarrassed. Here I am. I'm an American, and I would say, if the whole world were a university, I would say America is getting a D on communication and reconciliation. We're not doing very well, and I frequently, when I talk to people from other cultures, I feel kind of embarrassed. So if I'm speaking to a Muslim culture, I want to draw on the Muslim resources of reconciliation, and that you must go back and talk to the person after 3 days. That's another really good one. And so the 7 challenges are a way that we could do that with more grace.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Good. Well, with that said, Dennis, I think we should sign off now. I
All right.
look for time that we do this again, continue with another challenge, or just another more of challenge 7, where we continue to learn.
Yes. Challenge 7.
Let's conclude with something. So I'm going to continue pursuing with that. I'm traveling on Sunday, but we need to be aware that it's going to be difficult to market anything next week because of Eid coming up. So Eid is on Saturday. So most people during the coming week are just getting ready for for that Eid. So maybe the week after that is when we have to start maybe calling people, because we're going to call people. Anybody we call this week is going to say call us after Eid or after the holidays.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
we have a week to kind of prepare and refine exactly who we're reaching out to, what markets, and how we're going to do that.
Okay. Can you repeat again what it was that you thought I should be doing? I remember you saying you were going to rework on the document and then.
Yes, the document you send, I'll create the brochure and some material out of that. And I want to start contacting some of the HR companies that I've worked with before, so at least they're aware of it, and let's start to get them, encouraging them to attend.
Mm-hmm.
And with yourself, I think it was more about how we can appease some of what Dennis's concerns are about these distant learning challenges. How would we what could we do on our end, interactively, or whether it's an advisory board, whether it's people that can come on board from this culture that can help, whether it's creating half an hour of content before each session, whether it's how we facilitate interactively.
Okay, good. All right.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, and a conversation to be continued.
Yeah, to be continued. Okay, thanks a lot, Dennis.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. All right.
Okay, then.
Bye-bye.
I'll talk to you later then.